But anyway, and suddenly there's these loud booms, crashing sounds, plates, silverware, everything flying all over the place. And people started yelling, "Get down, get down." Somebody kind of grabbed me and pushed me from
a Washington, D.C. gala, a room full of journalists, senators, activists, lawyers, black tie dinner. And in one single moment, total chaos. Now, here's what you need to understand about why this moment matters beyond the panic itself. The man being pushed to the floor, that's a law professor, a journalist, someone who had just come from a memorial service for Virginia Roberts. He wasn't even at his table yet, hadn't even sat down. And then boom, everything goes sideways in seconds. But that's not the part of this story that should stop you cold. Because in that room, on that floor, in the middle of all that screaming, was Carrie Kennedy, the daughter of Robert F. Kennedy, the niece of John F. Kennedy. 2 men shot dead. 2 men whose assassinations changed the course of American history. And here she is, in 2024, hitting the ground again at the sound of sudden crashing. Because that's what trauma does. It never fully leaves. Think about what that moment felt like for her, specifically. Not for the room, for her. The witness in this clip says it clearly. He thought immediately about her situation, about what those sounds mean to someone who grew up in a family shattered by gun violence, about what it means to hear "get down" and not know if this is the moment you lose someone else. 2 to 3 minutes on that floor. And we don't know exactly what was going through Carrie Kennedy's mind in those 2 to 3 minutes. But we're about to find out. Because what she said the second it was safe to stand back up is the part of this story that the media completely buried.
Unlike most of the people there, I was not dressed in black tie. I'd been at a memorial service for Virginia Roberts Giuffre. It was 1 year since her passing, and I came from that in another event in Annapolis at the home of Iris Krasnow. And I arrived, and I'd just been there for a few moments. I had not even gotten to the table where I was going to be, table 36 with the people from NBC. The people at the Boston Globe table saw me, got up, they wanted to greet me and say hello, and they said, "Your old friend Carrie Kennedy is here. We go back to law school in the 20th century, you know." And so Carrie came over, we were talking. There was also to my right was a former student of mine, Paul Strauss, who's the statehood senator for Washington, D.C. And they came up, I started telling Carrie a story because I'd been speaking at the Kennedy's King dinner the night before. And I was talking about how, you know, they weren't honoring all kings, just Dr. King, and they weren't honoring all Kennedys, but JFK and RFK, but also Carrie. But anyway, and suddenly there's these loud booms, crashing sounds, plates, silverware, everything flying all over the place. And people started yelling, "Get down, get down." Somebody kind of grabbed me and pushed me from behind. I landed on Carrie and a couple other people, and then, you know, people were panicked. You know, I thought immediately about Carrie's situation, having lost her father in gun violence assassination and her uncle. And we were down on the ground for about 2 or 3 minutes before people were saying it's safe to get back up. They got him. We got up, and the first thing that Carrie said to me was, "This is happening in schools across the country, and the kids have no resources to process their trauma." And so she was talking about gun violence and thinking about other people, and she's a great human rights activist. And
Stop right there. She just went through something terrifying. She's the daughter of a man who was murdered with a gun. She just spent 2 minutes on a cold floor in a ballroom not knowing what was happening. And the first words out of her mouth were about children, not herself, not what she just felt, not even a single second of processing her own fear. Kids in schools, their trauma, the resources they don't have. Let that land for a second. Because there are people in that very room, people at those tables, journalists, political operatives, staffers, senators' aides who have been debating gun policy in the abstract for decades, writing op-eds, going on panels, sitting in hearings. And Carrie Kennedy just lived through a version of what children in Uvalde and Parkland and Sandy Hook lived through, except she was at a dinner party in a nice suit, and it still took 2 to 3 minutes on the floor before anyone was sure it was safe. Now imagine you are 7 years old, 8 years old, 10 years old. You're in a classroom, and you don't know what's happening, and there is no one to help you process what that sounds like, what that feels like afterward, what it means to not feel safe at school, what it means to carry that. That's what Carrie Kennedy was thinking about in real time while she was still catching her breath. This is the contrast that should be front and center in every conversation about gun violence in America. Not just the legislation, not just the numbers, the human cost, the invisible weight, the trauma that doesn't go away just because the threat was neutralized. They got him, someone said. And in Washington, that's supposed to make everything okay. But in schools across this country, there is no "they got him" announcement. Sometimes there isn't even a protocol. Sometimes the kids just live with it. Go home. Come back the next day. And the adults in the buildings that make the rules are still at gala tables debating the language of a bill. This is the moment that should have broken through the noise. A woman who has every reason in the world to be consumed by her own grief and her own fear used what could have been a purely personal, traumatic experience to advocate, immediately, instinctively, automatically, for the most vulnerable people in this country. That's not politics, that's character. And it stands in pretty sharp contrast to the people in that room who've spent years doing a whole lot of talking and a whole lot of nothing. Here's the bottom line. A Washington, D.C. gala briefly became a panic zone. A man got pushed to the floor. Carrie Kennedy, daughter of RFK, niece of JFK, hit the ground in a room full of the most powerful media and political figures in the country. And when it was over, when the adrenaline was still in her throat, when she had every excuse in the world to talk about herself, she talked about kids. She talked about schools. She talked about what this country is not doing for the people who need it most. That is the story. Not the panic, not the crashing plates, not the dramatic details of who was at table 36 or which senators were in the room. The story is that a woman with more personal reason than almost anyone alive to be broken by gun violence is still standing, still fighting, still thinking about the next generation while she's literally getting off the floor. Meanwhile, Washington holds another hearing, passes another resolution, attends another gala. And somewhere in a school hallway right now, a kid is learning an active shooter drill, and nobody is checking on how they're processing that. That gap between the rooms where power sits and the halls where children are scared, that's the gap that Carrie Kennedy named in about 15 seconds while still catching her breath. This country has the resources. What it doesn't have is the will. If this story hit you the way it should, share it, because the clips in this video won't trend on their own. But you can make sure people see what was said. Drop this video anywhere the conversation about gun violence is happening, and if you want more coverage like this, real moments, real words, real people, subscribe. Because this channel covers the stuff that gets buried every single week.